Now, the skin is the largest organ on the body. It protects and regulates temperature. It's also made up of multiple layers. I think it's around 7 or 8, but those layers are the epidermis, the dermis, and the hypodermis layers. However, what isn't often told is that the dermis is made up of 2 layers, so really, we're talking about 4 layers. So the epidermis. Now, the epidermis is the top layer of skin. This is the protective layer, and it stops bacteria from entering the skin and causing infection. So if your tattoos ever get infected, it is because the epidermis has failed. The epidermis is also responsible for the growth of new skin cells every 30 days. Also, fun fact, it's actually the epidermis that gives you the color of your skin because this contains the most melanin. Now onto the dermis layer. Now this is the layer that you will get to know the most. The dermis is located directly underneath the epidermis and is the area that you will want to be tattooing into. The dermis layer supports the epidermis, providing strength, but it also transports nutrients to the epidermis layer. This is to help maintain that epidermis. The dermis layer is also responsible for sweat and hair growth, and it makes up around 90% of your skin's thickness. Now, as I said earlier, the dermis actually has 2 layers of its own. The top part of the dermis being the papillary dermis, and the bottom half being the reticular dermis. The papillary dermis is the much thinner of the 2, and you could probably call this the basement layer of the epidermis. As I mentioned, the dermis layer is the layer that you will be tattooing into for the most solid tattoo. If you are not hitting that dermis layer and you are too high up in that epidermis, or even just touching that basement layer, the papillary dermis, you are not going to have a solid tattoo due to that skin's reproduction. So the dermis layer varies in thickness, going from roughly around 0.6 millimeter on the eyelids to around a 4 millimeter thickness on the back and the bottom of the feet. For the ideal tattoo, you need to be tattooing between the papillary dermis and that reticular dermis. If you go any deeper than that, you are going into that hypodermis or the subcutaneous layers of tissue, and you are going to blow out everywhere, and that is not going to be good. So onto the hypodermis. Now the hypodermis is the fat. The hypodermis is what connects your skin to your muscles, and it is a complete no-go. If you are tattooing this layer of skin, seriously expect some seriously big blowouts, a client in absolute agony, and for sure a potential lawsuit. If you aren't sure what a blowout is and how to avoid a blowout, then you can check this video here and it will give you all the information. Now, I know the question that you're asking, how do you know if you are in the correct layer of skin? This is not the video for that. This is just talking about the skin to give you a little bit more understanding before you tattoo, or if you are even tattooing and you didn't know these things. This will be something explained in my seminar, so keep an eye out. If you pull out your laptop right now and you search art paper supplies, it will bring back a whole range of different styles of paper. Different sizes, different thickness, more tooth, less tooth, completely smooth. It will even come in different colors, believe it or not. White, tan, red, black, whatever. And this is the exact same when it comes to your client and their skin. For the most part, the skin reacts the same to getting tattooed. You may deal with skin that's more oily, you may start tattooing and the skin may become more irritated. That's all subjective to the client and their skin. But sometimes, just sometimes, you will need to adapt to the skin to be able to execute the perfect tattoo. Now, we all know that the skin is a complicated organ. It comes with blemishes, it comes with birthmarks, it comes with scarring, it comes with moles. Even a popular one, so popular now that people are getting them tattooed, and that is freckles. All these have an effect on the tattoo process, and will determine how your final tattoo looks. If you're doing black and grey, for example, surface scoring and blemishes will show up through your lightest tones, and you will have to take that into account. If there is moles on the skin, they cannot be tattooed, so maybe that's when you need to start thinking about placement of your tattoo. No matter how good your tattoo is, you do not want a mole going smack bang straight through the middle of your design. So maybe you could hide it in the details so it's not so obvious. We all know that moles change, and tattooing them, being very serious, could lead to a undiagnosed problem. For freckled skin, you may want to consider color, as again, if you're doing black and gray, freckles will show through on those light to mid tones. And then finally, scars. You know, is the scar keloided? How bad is the scar? How old is the scar? As a tattoo artist, it is our job to be constantly assessing the skin before we tattoo it and during the tattoo process. And you need to have the ability to be able to make adjustments accordingly. Sometimes the skin can be so bad. I remember having a client where his leg had been in a cast for the last year or two, maybe even longer than that, due to operations, and it gave his skin a plasticky feel, and it was incredibly difficult to tattoo. Now I figured it out, so if you are struggling with how to tattoo really rough and really just terrible skin, then drop it in the comments and I'll do a video. But guys, peace out, muchas love. I hope you've learned something. Subscribe. Ciao.